In this session titled Away from the Beaten Path, we have with us Mr. Akhilesh Jukareddy. Akhilesh is an HRBP with Wipro Europe and is based out of Zurich, Switzerland. He comes with close to 8 years of HRBP experience across countries from India to Switzerland to Germany, Austria, Italy, and even Spain. He has also worked on setting up Wipro at Baltics countries. He founded the largest student NGO in Hyderabad, Street Cause, which currently operates in various cities, including Chennai, Pune, Kochi, Bangalore, Vizag, and even Hyderabad, to help the underprivileged in the best possible way. Akhilesh also invests in startups and enjoys working with them. He is the recipient of the prestigious NHRDN Ramcharan Award, which he received in 2021. And now, without wasting much time, I request Akhilesh to please take over and proceed with the session further. Over to you, Akhilesh.
Thanks, Pranav. Thanks a lot for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the session. And before I quickly introduce my panelists, I would probably take a couple of minutes to just set the context, and then maybe the essence of the panelists would be much better after I kind of set the context. Many a times or sometimes we see a perception around us, not trying to generalize it, but there's a perception around us in the HR fraternity that we might be very successful at what we do in human resources, but we might not possibly be able to change fields and thrive there. To be able to also take up business leadership roles and to thrive there, the expectation is not as such. The market at some point of time does not strongly encourage HR people to also take up business leadership roles. But there are a lot of leaders who've debunked that. NS Rajan, who served as the CMO, the CEO of IDFC Foundation, Rajiv Dubey, who's served as the CEO of After Services in Mahindra & Mahindra, Santhrop Mishra, who heads the carbon business at the Birla Group, Pratik Kumar at Wipro Infrastructure. So there are a lot of people who've become from HR leaders to business leaders. And today on the panel also we have a terrific HR leader who's later become a business leader. So today's conversation is to dive into some of the personal stories of our panelists to understand how HR education and HR profession has built a foundation for them to do something more and different from HR and to absolutely create a great sense of value. And that brings us to the path or the road that they have taken, which is different from the regular, and that also further brings us to the topic of today, which is away from the most beaten path. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again, and it's my privilege and honor to welcome our first panelist, Padmakar sir, the ex-chairman and managing director of BPCL, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, a $40 billion organization that he's headed as the chairman and managing director. And what a beautiful feeling it is for everyone in the HR fraternity to know a HR leader who's done some transformation work at BPCL as during his tenure as the chairman. He is one of those leaders in BPCL who's initiated the conversation around diversification into natural energy, into natural gas. So that's one of the biggest contributions that Padmakar sir has done during his tenure. What's very interesting is as a PNL leader, he has made BPCL the most profitable in its history during his stint as the chairman. So Padmakar sir, welcome to the panel, and thanks for taking time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Akhilesh.
Thank you, sir. And another one point that I wanted to highlight is the beautiful artist that Padmakar sir is, and we will talk more about it on this conversation today. And on the second panelist, we have Rhucha, 6 years in HR profession, was doing really well. Has worked for PepsiCo, worked for Marico, worked for Accenture, but gave it all up to take up full-time photography, to live her passion, a HR turned entrepreneur. She's into niche photography, into maternity, newborn, infant photography. She's worked with international photographers, coached and trained by them to do what she does. From a very comfortable HR job where she was high performing, to be able to make a decision to move into photography, which is men dominated. It's true, right? Majority of the photographers are men, and exhaustive work hours. I know this because I recently got married and I saw the work the photographer was doing. So great stuff, Rhucha. So we're going to see more of her personal stories coming in today. And then we have Yogesh, worked with Hindustan Times, worked in e-commerce, worked in insurance, and then again gave it all up to become an entrepreneur. And what's very interesting about Yogesh, he brings dramatics and human resources together. So he does theater shows for corporates, L&T, Raymond, Cipla, Bajaj. These are some of his customers. He's worked with all the fancy celebrities like Shah Rukh Khan, Kapil Sharma, Ritesh Deshmukh. What he brings to these sessions is the context of leadership, emotional intelligence, gender, the importance of gender diversity, unconscious bias, not just through regular conversations, but through a whole set of drama that we love, especially as Indians. So that's the kind of beautiful work that Yogesh does. So a terrific panel for all of you today. And we really hope you enjoyed this discussion. So it's a 45-minute conversation. I'm going to start off with some questions to our panelists, and then there are going to be more follow-up questions. We're going to try and stop at 30 minutes to show you some of the artistic view of how our panelists have expressed themselves in terms of art. We'll spend 7-8 minutes to do that, and then we'll try to do questions, maybe 2-3 questions, and then we'll conclude. So on that note, Padmakar sir, my first question to you. Sir, HR leader for more than 30 years, and a lot of experience, a lot of impact and value that you've created. But moving into a P&L role, to becoming a chairman, managing director for a very reputed, respected organization like BPCL, to have the chief marketing officers, to have the business leaders, all of them report into you. How was that transition, and what was the skill set that HR could build for you? And was there any skill gap that you found which you used to transform? And how do you see this entire perception of HR foundation that people have on, and how they could possibly build it? Obviously not just in HR, but also outside. So, and if you can also further give some direction to this conversation today, that'll be great. So looking forward to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you, Akhilesh. See, being in HR, sometime, depending on the level at which you are divorced from the entire P&L responsibility. It happens. But once you start sitting in what we call as apex meetings over there, which starts from general manager and above, we start getting tuned into the business processes, the challenges, what's happening. And particularly petroleum is a sector which is under a lot of pressure of various kinds. And being a government-owned company, while apparently they say there is no price control, but then behind the scenes there is every kind of price control and squeeze. So we have also learned cost management along the way. So while in HR, like one of the things we saw early on, which was some 25 years back, that we don't need recruitment anymore of workmen. So we stopped that completely. And then as we went forward, we also saw the responsibility for leadership pipeline development. So those things came naturally to us. But having been on the board for 3 years and then suddenly being entrusted with the chairmanship, it became a little easier because I was part of the board discussions, and many times I had to intercede for the chairman and other directors because one had to make sure that they don't plead their case too much before the government directors as well as the independent directors, because we need to make sure that the dignity of the position is maintained. So those were the times when even someone like me could butt in and tell them very clearly, aren't we losing focus? I mean, the real issue is this, but we are discussing something else. Can you leave that to me to handle and get back to you? So that is how even some of the major project decisions also got taken. Yeah, but once I became a chairman, one thing I was very clear. Day one, I spoke to my other friendly directors who were, that time we were only 3 of us. And so I was handling 2 portfolios, chairman and director HR. And one of my colleagues who's currently the chairman, he was holding 3 portfolios. Director marketing, director refineries, and 2, and director finance. Now these are all experts in their fields, and then I can't be riding roughshod over them. And so one message I was very clear about is that, look, we are all equals, but then when it comes to decision making, The final veto power has been bestowed to me, so that's one thing we need to be clear. But we will have a discussion on everything before we decide on any single matter. That was already the practice, but then here it was more inclusive, and I was able to take in many things much, much faster. Uh, then a lot of things which could not be done during the time of our predecessors for various compulsions they had. And here I was not a formally selected chairman, but being entrusted with the charge. It gave me a lot of freedom in terms of not being worried about hanging on to the seat. So that helped me quite a bit in terms of dealing with the finance ministry, because as a part of privatization exercise, they have something called interministerial group, which is only the chairman and director of finance of the company which is being sold, and all the other ministries, including Department of Public Enterprises, Ministry of Petroleum, and you name it, they are there, Finance Ministry, and so on. So many a time we both could, me and Director of Finance, we were extremely bold saying that, look, for company and people interest, this is what we need to do. If you don't agree with it, that's your problem, not ours. And till you sell us, it's our job to make sure that the company thrives and makes profits and all our people are looked after. And you cannot put pressure on us under any circumstances. And we said, if you don't want us, you get us removed. And then, but we are not going to say yes to you very blindly. So those were very bold choices we both had to make. And also we had to negotiate in terms of reintegrating our Bina refinery in Madhya Pradesh by speaking to Oman Oil Company for share purchase. Those were all the things which were put off. And that gives us an advantage of something like 800 to 1000 crores per annum once it's integrated back with us. So one thing I had learned was let the masters do what they have to do. And when it comes to critical decision making is where I step in. And once I was there, I was very clearly able to see like how the film reels run in terms of every single decision, what it calls for in terms of people and their talents and what needs to be done. So it was a fantastic learning experience. By then I was getting bored of HR, and when the opportunity came, it was a fantastic reprieve from HR to learn all about business, deal with Secretary Petroleum, deal with the ministers, and deal with parliamentary committees in that capacity. Many of those sites we come under many pressures of pulls of very different kinds. But once you speak to them the truth very boldly, they do appreciate. And then at least for the year I was told subsequently by the Petroleum Ministry people they were scared of approaching me with anything wrong. So I was glad about that part of it. I see it as a compliment. Thank you.
So I have a very quick follow-up, sir. Where did people give you a tougher, challenging time? Who made your life difficult? Was it the HR fraternity, or was this 1 year of leadership that you had as the chairman? Where
I
did
found
people
it
make
was the
your life
HR
difficult?
fraternity. And my answer is very clear. HR doesn't change because they're so bothered about some buzzwords and some frameworks. It's difficult for them to understand how quickly they need to change and to reach to the person on the ground. And mind you, in companies like ours, something like 70% are in the field. And they're in the field across the country, various locations. So one needs to really touch base in terms of what they're doing. But that is something which I found it was easier to deal with business people than
For sure, sir. Thanks for that. So, Rhucha, coming to you, why did you give up human resources, and do you plan to come back, and what does it take from an economic standpoint? Does it all add up? Because that is important while the passion really takes over. So did it all make sense? Was this your decision or family decision? Are you looking forward to come back to human resources, and you've got any advice for our audience today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, first of all, NHRDN, and really humbled to be alongside eminent panelists. In fact, Padmakar sir, who has taught us during college days, and my fellow batchmate Yogesh. So, coming to your question, Akhilesh, why? I think that's the motivating factor which has, led me to take this different path. I'm a solopreneur, by the way. I'm into the business of telling stories. It's visual storytelling. So on the face of it, photography, videography, these are tools. But what is it? It is all about. So I personally believe that each one of us is, a woven together string of different stories. All of us play so many different roles on the professional front, on the personal front. We have our interests, etc. And that is what makes us a complete personality. So I also have a lot of interests, and juggling all of those together, leading a more creative and a more fulfilling, enriching kind of a life on a daily basis is what I wanted to strive for. So that's what motivated me to first, I actually established my first venture, which was a jungle travel company. And thereafter, it was for a very niche audience. So gaining profitability over there in a fashioning it out in a very sustainable way was not possible. Thereafter, I thought, what else can I do to kind of marry all my interests and make it financially sustainable, emotionally sustainable, and so that I can do this as a lifelong commitment. So that's where Life in Clicks photography came into the picture. And basically the motivation is also to make a difference in people's lives. So photography is all about telling stories, capturing the authentic self behind the subject who we are capturing in front of us. So when I do portrait shoots, whether it's for corporates or newborn photographs, it's the very joy of that moment. So for example, a lot of my clients are new mothers who are in a very vulnerable stage. They're still figuring out. So being a part of that special moment, which that moment is captured, it's going to be there for their life, throughout the life of the baby, and whether I am there tomorrow or not, that moment, that memory is going to be there forever. So I just believe that very fact, that making a lasting imprint on the clients that I deal with, that definitely kind of enthuses me every day. So that's one of the main motivations, apart from the creative element, apart from the passion which is there. So yes, passion is good, but to make it sustainable, it has to be a part of a business plan. There has to be profitability. There has to be a P&L mindset which goes into it, so that that passion can actually become a profession and not just a hobbyist kind of a profession. So I think
Okay,
that's my belief.
Yeah, sure, Ruchi. So I have two quick follow-up questions. One is during the transition, right? What was your mindset on the economics of it? Because you were salaried and it was obviously comfortable. And how did that transition happen? And for people who are in the HR fraternity and who want to make such bold moves, what do you suggest, right? The second is on, did HR education and HR career of 6 years help you in a certain way? Because you talked about P&L mindset. That's not something that we regularly do in human resources. So how do you, kind of bring that up?
Absolutely. So I'll come to your second question first about HR helping me, because I think that has really helped on to building a business and making the passion profitable, as the first question which you put forth. So throughout my career stints with PepsiCo, with Accenture, with Marico, I had a lot of business partnering, which was a part of my roles. So having a upfront visibility of how the business mindset, understanding P&L elements, the hard skills, so to say, is something which I derived quite a lot from my interactions with business leaders, with HR leaders as well. However, more importantly, I believe that HR has really helped me understand the innate psychology of people. So right from, for example, if I talk about the portrait shoots that I do for corporate headshots, etc., this entire process where I capture through detailed conversation with the subject about what are the values, what are the innate fears, what are the motivations. Deep discussions ensue into planning that portrait shoot. So as they say, a portrait shoot is not about clicking the person in front of it, it's about clicking the soul of the person. So elements like, we have heard about in HR a lot is authenticity. Do we capture the authentic person when we capture a portrait? Or is it a balance of what we want to portray versus what we actually are, our true selves, what we call it? So all these elements matter quite a lot in bringing the HR knowledge, applying it, and then developing it into visual storytelling element. So that's one part of your the second question which you
Yes.
asked. As far as the first part is concerned, yes, jumping into unknown waters very difficult when you're used to, corporate steady job where you have a salary, etc. I think what is very important to know is the why you are doing it. So there have been ups and downs. There has been the pandemic where we were closed for almost 7 to 8 months through the two waves. But sustaining through that requires a lot of resilience. That is also something that I have learned along the way through my corporate career as well. Resilience, emotional stability, these are things which you get thrown into the water and then you learn how to swim. So that is a very important part. Apart from that, one very important thing which I believe, in taking the plunge is not putting all your eggs in the same basket. So while this is one part of my work, a majority of my profession, I do write a lot on travel. I do write for HR publications. I do also, compose poetry, and those are different, kind of divesting all your interests in financial sources to kind of sustain in the long run. So that's
perfect. Thanks, Rhucha. So thanks a lot for that. So Yogesh, over to you.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes.
So Yogesh, I think the theatre group that you've set up, I think, is very unique, niche, and it's one of its kind, right? So why this thought? And generally, it would be a theatre group that would come up with an idea to intervene into some sort of a problem solving, but it's a HR person who's picked up dramatics and is trying to solve problem through entertainment to the best way of communication. So why, how, and what is it?
True. So to be frank, I was into theatre and I was into amateur theatre, to be frank, when I was in institutes like when I was doing my graduation or when I was in my junior college. That kind of gave me a flair of theatre. So I used to do theatre without really understanding how it helps people, so I used to only see the entertainment perspective, and usually people only see the entertainment perspective of theatre. Now when I met Tissians and when I studied in TIS, and the 2 years of TIS kind of exposed me to the societal importance of theatre and how important theatre is for the society. And then when I started working, I came across these forms of theatre which are primarily used for revolution, like theatre of the oppressed, and then playback theatre, and there is theatre of the different forms, especially in the European culture. And then when I reflected back in India, also there was certain, each region has their own genre. Like in Gujarat there was Bhawai, in Maharashtra there was Tamasha, and then and there was so much. India is so rich in theatre. Like in every region has their own. Now that kind of excited me. Now when I take a form which is only seen as entertainment, and I kind of add the values of human resources or the problem solving approach of human resource, which I learned in TIS and which I applied in my workplaces, I understood that I can marry both my passion and profession together. And that was the first, I would say, stimuli for me to, okay, this is possible. And this, so people who would tell me that, you cannot enjoy your work and make money, or you can not strike a balance between passion and profession, I think I had an answer for that. And slowly and steadily I started innovating and creating based on the need of the client. Today, as you said, the theatre group, we call ourselves Theatre for Tomorrow, and we are primarily expertise in only doing online Zoom based or any platform based theatre, like online theatre, where pandemic started and people had stopped visiting theatre arenas. We brought theatre to the laptop screen, so here we replace the physical movement and other elements of theatre through psychological trigger. I started involving people at the mind level, where even after they've watched my play, the thought will still trigger in their mind about a change or a revolution, or as metamorphosis, the word itself. It's a continuous process of growing and changing. So yeah, that's how we kind of thought.
Wow, that's wonderful, Yogesh. So Padmakar sir, I have a quick follow-up on what Yogesh has mentioned. As an artist yourself, do you see this as evolution in human resources itself to be able to do what Yogesh is trying to do and solve?
It's very true, Akhilesh, because I'm very glad to come across Rhucha and Yogesh, who have started it very, very young. And they started integrating that with their HR and business practices. In my case, I didn't have the guts to do so, and nor did I have the opportunities. But in my case, I just kept it on, and this really helps you see various perspectives in terms of human dynamics, and including about self, because most importantly, one of the things I have learned is higher you go in the leadership positions, more humility you should be having. And that can come only if you truly understand yourself in terms of how much you don't know rather than how much you know. Because if you operate only from the platform of how much I know, your listening stops, and then it's like they say a full pot can never receive water. It is always an empty pot which can take in. So many a time we need to keep shedding what we know, what we call unlearning in our HR language. But these are the kind of things which these arts teach you in terms of suddenly they make you understand how minute you are in the scheme of things. I mean, if I have to speak it philosophically in the cosmic scheme of things, am I really doing this, or am I not using someone else's techniques, processes, methodologies in terms of creating something I call my own, which is also happening. Like when Rhucha takes a picture, it is in the here and now about that person and that authentic person that comes out. And then same with what Yogesh does in terms of expression.
Yes, sir. Yes.
The power of the human soul in terms of what it can do. So when these things happen to you, you personally evolve, and then you kind of become humble, and you're also able to receive quite a bit in terms of and see these kind of things in others, which otherwise you can be quite tied up in terms of like a horse with blinkers in terms of HR processes, jingoism and so on. But your world doesn't really open up unless you're into something else, which you also do simultaneously, and you're able to integrate that. Like in my case, art taught me the power of trying to grow beyond from micros to very large canvases in terms of how does one do it. There was, like I told you some time back, my middle class modesty, many of these things stood in the way in terms of will this canvas go for a waste. Now Rhucha fortunately is in a journey when she doesn't have to worry about film, it's only digital photography. But when I took up photography, it was about should I be wasting the film or should I be clipping? Because there are costs associated with it.
Yes.
So in case of Yogesh, probably it will be in terms of getting the best out of the person at that point in time when it is very, very impactful. It's not easy at all, getting all these things happening. So yes, to answer your question, you evolve quite a bit, and you end up becoming very expansive, very inclusive, and you also learn that in this entire world you are but a speck of dust, and that humility is very, very helpful in terms of self-evolution.
Absolutely, sir. Thanks for that. So Yogesh, what's going to be your advice to someone who wants to make a transition? And again, the question again, I keep asking this: how did it make economic sense, and what do you think people should do? How do they balance the economic sense of it and passion?
So I'll just share a quick story. When I left my job, and for the first time when I resigned, I didn't tell my family, because it's a big decision to involve your family that you're leaving your job. So until for next 3 to 6 months, I was able to make the same amount of money which I used to make through my passion, which I used to get from my job. And after 6 months, when I had made a respectable amount and got enough confidence to tell my parents that yes, I've been jobless from last 6 months and I've been making enough money and same money, and sometimes even more by working on my passions. So they kind of very overwhelmingly supported me from that day onwards. Okay, this person knows what to do, and he also is okay with doing what strongly believes in something, and we need to, rather than opposing him, support him. So only that kind of changed my perception and gave me a lot of confidence that yes, now I have a support of my family and I don't have to really stop at any point of time. So I think what really any family member or any person who loves you is concerned about is your safety and well-being. And if you are able to assure that whatever you're doing is creating enough value for the system around you, and whatever means you're using are ethical or not totally illegal, so I think these two things are enough to assure anyone on this planet how you do it through an open dialogue. You do it by showing them what you have done in the last for a month without not telling them. It's something you have to decide based on what is your configuration with your relationships. That is something you have to choose for yourself. But I would just say that these two things won't change. If you are able to assure them that you will be able to do good, and you are confident enough to take your own decisions, I think they will be more than happy to stand beside you rather than stand against you. That's something.
Thanks, Yogesh. So, Rhucha, before we go on to the next theme where we're going to show art and use the last 13-14 minutes, Rhucha, what was one of the most difficult conversations that you've had from your friends or your customers or any and during this transition? I mean, it could be about your photography or about the transition, or was there any very difficult conversation that you've had and which it really kind of drained you emotionally? If your decision is right, if you're on the right path, if people don't like your pictures, was there any very transformational, emotionally draining situation that you've had?
Yes. So as Yogesh mentioned, I'll completely resonate with those thoughts. I had a similar journey where disclosing to my family that I'm, going to leave a very stable job and pursuing something which is unheard of, newborn photography. Who even does that? So that was definitely very difficult. There was an ongoing tussle, positive and negative between that. Eventually, of course, belief and persisted. I think more difficult for me was convincing myself that okay, I could do it, because it was a 180-degree shift for me in terms of a profession and committing to something which I do not have like an educational background or a solid professional experience on was important. So there I decided that let me equip myself with the right trainings, the right certifications, being internationally certified in newborn photography. That helped me gain some confidence. There was the pandemic which came and went, and for service oriented industry like mine, definitely impacted. So going through that, constantly having that positive self-talk, reassuring oneself became very, very important during this entire phase. But eventually I felt that I grew as a person. I became more resilient, more emotionally intelligent also, so as to for the future, also a big learning journey along the way. So that's how it's panned out.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Rhucha, Yogesh, and Padmakar, sir. So, sir, we have another 12 minutes, Yogesh, Rhucha. Maybe we could use the next, 9-10 minutes on showing the kind of art that you were able to build. So I'll start with Padmakar, sir. Maybe you could share some of his thoughts. So Padmakar, sir, over to you. If you could talk a little bit about this, what was the mode of expression and I'm confused.
Yeah, this was a series. This was part of a series, Akhilesh. On the title was Masquerade, and I think this is the theme which I took to Paris when I went as a part of Indian Artists Group Show in 2013. The whole theme is about we keep getting used to putting on so many masks that after some time we become the mask castles. And so therefore, while generally the masks don't have eyes, etc., here I had painted it that way. And when you strip it off, you don't really know, and you're not able to look at yourself, your true self, because you find it so ugly. And so you would like to get back to putting on any of the masks that you're so grown up, so comfortable with. So this is the whole thing is about the kind of masquerade that we do in the various roles that we perform as a parent, as a son, as a brother, as a lover, as an employee, as a boss, many things that we do. And somewhere, like the way Rhucha said about, it takes a toll on your own authenticity, the way you need to be.
Sir, this picture, it's so beautiful. It for me it looks unreal. Sir, I want to ask you, how do you put this for commercial sale at some point of time, and how when is more audience going to watch this? Is there going to be a blog where people can go see, and is this going to be for sale at some point of time?
Yeah, this will be. This was meant for sale, but I could never sell anything so far because it's a very competitive place. Yes. And in terms of visibility and sale, as a public sector employee, I had certain protocols which I had to follow, particularly while on the board. So therefore, last 4-5 years, I chose not to exhibit at all. But from in April onwards, I have my first solo show coming up in Jahangir. So from then on, I hope something will kickstart here. And I do have a website that needs to be kickstarted again.
Beautiful.
In a very different way.
Beautiful, sir. So the other painting which really struck me was this is me on a bad day. So I want your thoughts on this one. How did you feel the day you painted this? Did you have a bad day, or what led to this painting?
See, all of us have certain ugliness in us which is not visible to the public, and we won't like to bring it to ourselves many a time. At the same time, so therefore, based on that personal ugliness of mine, I had, in fact, by and large, I'm an introvert, and but when I'm extroverted, I can be totally that too. But by and large, I enjoy my solitude, and I'm an introvert. And so this whole thing was also about in terms of owning up the other gender in you and try to be as wholesome as you can be. Because many a time we are gender coded. A girl has to behave like a girl, think like a girl, or whatever. And a boy also has to do many things like that. So in the process, you get deprived of not touching your wholesomeness, because a part of you which is left behind and which you're not embracing, you're not integrating yourself. So this theme was about that. It was about the masculine and the feminine integration, which in our mythology it is called as Ardhanarishwara, which is very beautifully explained. So the whole thing is about coming together and being a wholesome person. So this is a series again. This is a part of a series.
That's terrific, sir. It's such a beautiful. I could fully resonate with this. All right, so thanks for that. So another 8 minutes. So Rhucha, over to you. Looks beautiful, but very ambiguous, very confused.
So this is part of the corporate services. It's a professional portrait which I did for one of the HR professionals, and the light has been shaped such that it's coming from one side, a pen in hand, and just looking towards the light. So there are different ways in which we can interpret photographs, right? So this can be about innovation, a bright idea suddenly striking you, or you mulled over it and you made something concrete of it. It can also be about women empowerment, light being thrown on this female corporate employee, and the potential is being enlightened. So there are different ways of bringing this to light, and this very much resonates with the corporate offerings that we have, which tie into the HR background, which is diversity and inclusion, employee engagement, and all those elements. So that's where this powerful persona of this person and that moment of enlightenment coming into picture.
Wow, thanks for that, Rhucha. So, Rhucha, we have your second photograph here. If you want to quickly, this seems beautiful. This looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and how do you come up with those thoughts, like a baby, wrap it, put it in a basket? I mean, what kind of creativity does it take, and how does it work? How does your mind work when you start building a thought like this?
So I take a lot of inspiration from the different facets of my life. I love traveling, I love reading, I love playing the sitar. So that's how all these different ideas come into mind. I keep researching. The swaddling part is obviously the technical part, which I learned during my certification. It's always important to be out there, give new offerings to your clients, because that's where the repeat business, the repeat people coming back to you for more, that's where that comes from. So constantly reading up and going back to who I am as a person, what are my interests, what are my hobbies, that really helps me. This is like a nature-inspired setup for a newborn baby, and the parents also were very much nature lovers, so that's what we kind of put together. So thanks so much.
Thanks for that. So Yogesh, over to you. We've got some screens where you talk about the theater, the character.
Right.
What is it?
So I will quickly, in a nutshell, say that theatre premise has, or even filmmaking has three major elements: character, situations, and emotions. Now, usually in a workplace scenario, we have very little time for emotions. Now, what is character? How I understand is, if you can recollect from some of the images, you remember Dhanno, the horse, or the phone in the movie Hera Fairy, or Gabbar Singh, or Mogambo, or whatever. They are nothing but it's an illusion of being a human person. It could be static or dynamic. Now, usually in a routine, when we have grown from childhood, the constant reinforcement in our mind is we have to work hard, we have to start to be successful, or we have to do everything by putting 100% effort, so much, and we have to make it is assumed that our routine has to be a little boring and mundane, and any change of having any source of entertainment in a routine, it's considered to be a waste of time. And this is where your brain kind of, after working for in one particular zone for a while, needs a break, and it could be a small break you want. So now if you can just change the slide, there are certain archetypes. When I see an interview, usually people are talking about only the positive. Even if you say LinkedIn, everyone is a successful person, everyone is an overachiever. The idea is this shamming away or shying away from my negative sides or my limitations, as Padmakar sir also showed in his painting. And it's a detrimental to the entire HR world, because if you are not really open to your own vulnerabilities and weaknesses and are not able to discuss them in a forum where you consider to be family, then obviously there has to be something missing. So here, when the whole idea is, when I see character sketch, if you can just see, change the next slide. Now every character sketch, then in the next slide, character sketch is a little more complete picture where it has accommodation of everything. Now if I see my team members and my own self as a character and make my own character sketch, I'll be in a better position to make decisions. I'll be in a better position to handle my relationships, and I'll also be in a better position to do what is expected from me in that particular situation, rather than attaching my. So this experiment we did with an organization where we linked the job description to their favorite superhero character, and this is how we were able to add more value to. So here the vulnerabilities like my mental health, my psychological limitation, and even to the extent of, say, my expression in terms of love and conflicts and triangle, it's equally important. Now if my workspace is encroaching, I see it's a small observation where I see people want to provide everything at their workplace. They're giving them gym, they're giving them a hobby club, everything, but they are not giving them time away from their work colleagues. They're not giving them time away from that particular. So they're constantly thinking about work. And once you are able to give them some breather, they will come back refreshed for you. So it's like a refresh button on your laptop. You need to use it as per your liking. So that's the closure I would like to give. This one thing.
Thanks for that, Yogesh. So we have 2 more minutes. So today we've met terrific creative geniuses. We've met Padmakar sir, Rhucha, Yogesh, HR turned entrepreneurs, Padmakar sir with his terrific leadership, business leadership at BPCL. I think a lot of takeaways for all of us, but fundamentally one major takeaway is I think the HR education, the profession of HR gives us a lot of context, which not just allows us to be successful in the human resources fraternity, but gives us a huge opportunity to do more at business, at creative level, leave jobs, quit good paying, well paid salary jobs, and do take steps like how Rhucha and Yogesh did. Conversation, but before we close, I want to ask you the most non-HR question at this point of time, the topics away from the beaten path. So what's happening in Russia? What are your thoughts? The stock market is crashing, the Sensex is down, the crypto markets are crashing. Is it time to buy, time to sell? What are your thoughts? Last 1 minute. So Padmakar sir, Rhucha, any thoughts? Yogesh?
I have a closing thought. So I strongly believe for the initiative of farmers and farmer suicide. More people have died out of farmer suicide than pandemic every year. So I would like to bring this small statistics that if like investing in stock, if 10 human beings are able to invest in one farmer, we will never see a farmer suicide in future. So I would just like to pitch in for this cause that it's important to invest in future, but it's also important to see how you can contribute in the present. So all this currency, crypto and everything is going to secure future, but what will what is the value of your future when you would not have human values with you. So so take care of your humans around.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, I think my take on what you asked, Akhilesh, is I think as a country we have many issues that we need to really work with.
Yes.
I think just as Mr. Putin is doing what he does, and there are many others on our side, so we need to be more wary about ourselves. Then only we'll be able to. I mean, we need to consolidate ourselves. That we have enough issues, and we
Yes.
have many aspects that we need to work towards. And I only hope that this does not escalate into something greater.
Yes. Yes.
That's my fear, because it just as everyone's just coming out of the pandemic and it's all its evil effects, and suddenly there's this evil man who decides to do something over there, and already many people are dead. I'm told already 20,000 odd people have died, civilians, for someone's political aspirations. I think we also need to, as HR people, we also need to worry about is uh, is my aspiration really bringing joy to people, or is it bringing a lot of disaster to my organization? So we need to take that example from Mr. Putin and then see how we can really be more humane than being very. I think his model seems to be to just go and annex and then get some strategic advantages with Europe and so on. But while that is his thing, I think we also need to grow our business, but at the same time, we also need to develop our people and look after them well. Yeah, so that's my thought.
So embracing the duality is the key. Like you see, embrace. We all are dual. Where I am a king, I'm also a beggar. So if you embrace the duality, I think that's the way to start.
Awesome.
I think as a culture in India, we have rich traditions, rich culture, which somewhere we do not really, bring on from. So we do need to kind of, humility, as Padmakar sir kindly mentioned, and other elements where we are more self-aware and more true to ourselves. So that will definitely help us override if we, as at individual, organizational and national level, keep those basic core elements in whatever we do. So that is very important.
Awesome. Thanks, Rhucha. Thanks, Padmakar sir. Thanks, Lord Yogesh. Thanks, Pranav. And thanks to the
Thank you
president of NHRD, the Mumbai chapter, and the Pune chapter for this terrific conversation opportunity. And thanks for the great session. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Grateful to all
for giving this
Thank you,
opportunity.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Ask me the biggest sin in the world, and I would say that being a host and closing such an engaging session, that is. But anyway, closing on the note that we all wear so many masks that we ourselves become masks. That is what I thought was perhaps the crux of not following the beaten path. So with this, I thank our esteemed panelists, Padmakar sir, Yogesh sir, Akhilesh, Rhucha, all of you that you gave your time. And I request the participants to please join our next session, which has already started. The session is on design thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye.